On the northeast coast of Scotland, built on a rocky piece of land jutting out into the North Sea, this castle has a rich history, from early chronicles to William Wallace to the Jacobite rebellions. And it was also the scene of one of the most famous sieges in Scottish history. This is James from History Victorum. Join us as we explore the castle of Donnattar.
Yes, James from History Victorum says it very well, so please go and watch the whole thing at his channel. I'll play a little bit more, but it's his video, but he explains it. The history.
The earliest mention we have of Donnattar is of a church that is said to have been founded by Saint Ninian in the 5th century. The Scottish Chronicle states that King Donald II of Scotland was killed at Donnattar during an attack by Vikings in the year 900, and the fortress there was destroyed. This is probably referring to Donnattor, which is a Pictish fort that was just across the bay. Another account states that in the year 934, King Athelstan of Wessex led an army northward into Scotland and raided as far north as Donnattar. Before the stone castle, Donnattar had a tower and early fortifications of wood and earth, and was used as an administrative center for local government in the 12th and 13th centuries. In the early 13th century, the castle's location inspired the medieval author of Roman de Fergus, a story set in the court of King Arthur, where the hero Fergus sets out to retrieve a shield of invincibility from the tower at Donnattar, which is guarded by a dragon. The region around Donnattar is a mountainous area, and when traveling by land, it's easiest to go around these mountains. The castle is placed at a location where the Grampian Mountains come close to the sea, so the land route from north to south must pass close to Donnattar, which shows the strategic location.
I'm adding this bit in because what it seems is that, see this place here? Before supposedly Westminster, but we already know that that was there when Guy Fawkes tried to demolish it, and that's why we have Guy Fawkes Night on the 7th of November. But this is where the politics was held, in Highclere Castle. It's kind of probably been downgraded then because it's on the television as something else, and I'm going to play you the video to explain it all about Highclere Castle. But if you imagine the magnificence of this place, if it had all this history, to have all the people working out the politics of this world was sorted out in this building. It's sort of been used as a hospital, it's been on the TV, but you're not really hearing the absolute history. It's now related to a TV programme. Anyway, let's play the video. That bit of the video, should I say. Just before we go on the buildings, this is Highclere Castle, and I'll show you where they used this building. Just for people that didn't know, it's Downton Abbey. Highclere Castle is Downton Abbey in the TV series on BBC. I think it's BBC. Anyway, just thought that you should know that. It's quite amazing actually. Before politics went to London, supposedly this is where the politics happened. Highclere Castle was the place. Yes, it's been a hospital. It's been home to these people. Lady Almina, she actually was a Rothschild, an illegitimate. She was whatever you want to call them. I hate saying all those words, but she was born out of wedlock. But they made sure she had lots of money. Looking quite regal there. Look at that. What a dress. And she was married, just 19 when she married the 5th Earl. Almina was actually the illegitimate daughter of Alfred de Rothschild. She arrived with a stupendous dowry, and the book moves on to uncover many fascinating stories on life, both upstairs and downstairs at the castle during Edwardian times. She attended the funeral of Queen Victoria, the coronation of Edward VII and also other grand royal events. Life changed in 1914 when the First World War broke and Almina rolled up her sleeves, turned Highclere Castle into hospital and began to admit patients coming in from all trenches. The stories of men whose lives and limbs she saved are moving and fascinating and provide an excellent reading companion to the fictional portrayal of the convalescent home in Downton Abbey. The wars were etched in history and eventually the fighting ceased. Many of the staff at Highclere had volunteered, not all of them came back. Lady Carnarvon returned the castle back to the family home and at the end of the Second World War signalled the return to Egypt, and her husband, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, the book that he found, supposedly Tutankhamun, discovered Tutankhamun in 1922.
In 1276, a church was consecrated by Bishop William Wishart of St. Andrews. This church later would be destroyed in a dark story involving William Wallace during the Scottish Wars of Independence.
This really does look quite an amazing place. It's built on this, well, when you look at it, you think, the first thing you think is, that looks like an enormous tree stump. That's what it looks like. It does, I have to say, but this community on there, it's sort of in the middle of nowhere now, but in its day it was a thriving place and it has so much history. I wonder what that building is down here. I'd like to know what that building is right over here, whether it was a part of this and that went down to there. But anyway, it was a prison, kings stayed there. It's a very beautiful place. That's the one thing people say is how beautiful, you know, the views are and everything. Although I'm sure they didn't put it there for the views. Anyway, he says something very interesting. It's a little bit later on, in a minute or two. When you think about what he says for that, imagine, how did they build this?
Landscape on the way up is absolutely beautiful. So there's kind of scaling these stairs. There's quite a lot of stairs. So here.
Obviously, if you're going to try and show a bit of this castle, you've got to do a little bit of research. And please, this channel here, I'm not being horrible. I'm just trying to make a point. He is walking and you can hear he's out of breath. So if it's all uphill and they've got to carry all the stuff there, how did they do it to make this castle, which I actually, as I will explain as we go along, feel that something else was there and they built on top of that.
Not the best of walk, I probably wouldn't recommend coming, but yeah, Stephanie and Logan, the children, are just ahead, so I'll catch them up in just a moment. And it really gives off a feel of an ancient castle. It really feels really old. I've been to some castles, but not one as beautiful as this. Okay, so we're just going to head into the tower house or the keep, and to my left you've got a spiral staircase going up, so we're going to head up here, and it looks absolutely amazingly designed, architectural, and the tower house or the keep, I'll just call it the keep because that's the actual name for it, was a place where they would carry out business deals. They would have court cases here and make a lot of important decisions in this building.
When I was looking this up, they said that first there was a kind of wooden church, I think, in the 5th century. Then it turned into another church, other buildings. And I think the last bit was probably about, I don't know, 14th, 15th century? Something like that, maybe the 16th century. But you can see here, even though we've got bricks, and when I look around there's bricks and stones, and you know, it's all higgledy-piggledy, which we're finding now that everything is mended with bricks and stones and bricks and stones. You can see that these stones have been cut maybe they've mended the fire here, but you know, we've got shapes. So they were able to, when they were building this, to cut the big stones. When he is panning his camera around, you can see that there was different windows there, and that they've put those windows in. Do you see that? Like on, they've managed to. It's almost as if they must have put or someone has put a front on the building, because this is another building in here, and this has been built on because they've got totally different windows. But even if you take that bit away, because now we don't know when that was built and put in, whenever this was, do you see they've got mantles? They're mantles, aren't they? The bits under the windows. You see, they're cut. These are cut. So this must be more modern than this, because that is in front of this. But look at the size of the windows that they had. And look, they've been cut. As he's panning his camera around, another kind of window there, or whatever that is. Anyway, let's carry on. As he was panning round, got to this bit and I thought, I just wondered why this bit, considering how everything is very uniformed, there's this bit stick over the top of this. And then I was thinking, oh yes, they're all stone. Maybe this has definitely been put on afterwards, like a rendering, maybe a mending, or it was them changing history again, because there's a stone building under here. So obviously history, see there's stone to here. So that those stones have been put on like a rendering or something. That's not right, is it? That is under that. These have got stone and they've all been cut. I just thought that was interesting. I just saw it when he was panning his camera around. In the fireplace is stone. There's some stones there. Big stones, cut stones. So how did they do that? Just stopping the video there to show you it goes down. Obviously there's a puddle here and he has to jump over the puddle to get in there, but you can see, look, it's even cut down. So they were able to do all this. You know, well, the one thing that lockdown has taught us is that, I suppose, if you don't need it, you don't have it. And when money gets tight, you would be building the simplest way possible. These are all cut. I've said that when these things are built, we had to be affluent to be able to do this. Look. Look at this. Just say the building stopped in the 1600s. How did they do that in the 1600s? Let alone if it was done earlier and has been covered with some rendering to make it look old, but not as old as it really is, because actually the stone, it's all stone and the stone has been cut. How do they do it? Come on. I don't understand, and I actually think it's built on top of another building, which, you know, I'll explain a little bit later on. Yes, there is this little stone renderings everywhere, but in it, look what there is. 1, 2, I mean, look at that. That's a proper shape, cut. Look, these are all cut and are in the fireplace, in the place with all this.
Once had a gigantic open fire over here. This is the biggest fire stove I've actually seen in the castle itself, with windows on the top. Yeah, so also I did not notice, but if you can't see, I just zoom in there, there's an actual cave down there.
This is the bit that I said, when I said the person says it, this is the bit. Thank you very much to this channel. I hope they don't mind me using a tiny bit of their footage and just showing a bit more. I watched your video, I'm subbed to your channel now. Anyway, thanks very much. Now listen to what he says.
This castle actually protected the crown jewels, and the Scottish crown jewels, I think. When the Edinburgh castle was under attack, they moved the crown jewels from Edinburgh all the way up to this castle to keep them safe. So it's quite a drive from Edinburgh up to here. So you could imagine how long it would have taken them to take the crown jewels from Edinburgh up to this castle on horse. So that's a little bit of history.
It's always interesting. What it actually looks like is that this was a structure underneath. We'll show you a few more pictures in a minute. And that they built on top of another structure, to be honest. Yes, you have this history and he'll tell you, but you know, round the edges, I mean, that building looks different. It's that building looks different to these. There it is, look, you can see. Do you see on there? This looks like another structure. Was built on the top of. And underneath is something different. Probably goes down. There you go, look at that. Look at the shape of that. See that building? That looks like a building. I'll show you in a moment. That one there just reminds me. Yeah, that building is different to these buildings. So the front bit here reminds me, we're getting to it, we're just going through some pictures. There it is, that's that bit there, reminds me. There, that sort of grabbed me. It looks like it's got windows in it personally, and yeah, anyway, it's quite, what's left is still quite amazing when you think how old it is. How old they're saying it is. Look, that bit there looks just, that one. See, now that house has got windows sticking out. So that build, the other thing, that bit looks like that house a bit to me. That one. That reminds me a bit with windows. Anyway, pictures are left, and I think, well, when you're looking at one castle, you always happen to come across more. So I think we move on in a moment to a few more castles. But I just thought that was quite interesting, that place. I see lots of different time zones in there. And to me, it looks like they built on top of something else. Now, this is Tintagel Castle, another castle. And that one's the Mont St Michael, and that one's in the Shetlands. And I just came across and I thought, oh, I better put that in. Oh, I'll put that in. There, that's Mont St Michael. But there's that one. This is Tintagel Castle. I've been to Tintagel. Many moons ago, but this is in France. Did you see the steeple on that church? That was amazing. And this sort of amazing church in there, and the bit, look at that, right in the middle. There's bits there, that. Now that reminds me of Notre Dame, where those bits that stick out, it's got the same things on there. And I think we're back to Mont St Michael in the UK now, because obviously France has one and England has one. I think, yeah, that's right, there's two of them, isn't there? Anyway, you can see the causeway in the water. And then what it is I had them all in order, but actually there they are on Facebook in order, but they came through a wonky, so that's why we're a little bit over the place. But anyway, we'll just carry on to a bit of the story that this other channel is going to explain. History Victorum. I was just listening to a little bit. I hope they don't mind me putting... I mean, he was the one that sort of put most of it together. Anyway, let's carry on.
According to the poet Blind Harry, who wrote a biography on Wallace called The Wallace, in the late 15th century, William Wallace attacked Donnattor. 4,000 English soldiers were trapped seeking sanctuary, and some were driven off the cliffs while others took refuge in this chapel. Wallace set fire to the chapel and burned alive those inside. Blind Harry also states that Wallace went on to France to fight a lion and seems to get the age wrong of Wallace on several occasions, so this story may be a bit fantastic. But Edward did accuse Wallace of burning churches, and many fortresses changed hands during this time, so the gist of the story may well be true. The church we see now has been renovated, but the windows on the stories on the lower levels are believed to be original, on the south side. Wallace is said to have entered in secret through this side entrance, which is now known as the Wallace Postern. In the year 1336, King Edward III of England commanded William Sinclair to sail 8 ships to Donnattor to rebuild the fortification, but it again fell into Scottish hands later in that same year. 1359, the castle fell into the hands of the Keith family, who would own the castle for almost 400 years. With this newly acquired land, William Keith would build a stone tower, which would get him excommunicated from the church. In 1359, William Keith married Margaret Fraser, the niece of Robert de Bruce, and acquired the lands at Donnattor. William Keith built this tower on the site of Donnattor, which still stands today. He received complaints from the clergy that it was built on sacred ground related to the nearby church and cemetery. He went ahead with construction anyway, and in retaliation was excommunicated from the church. He had to appeal to the Pope himself and wrote a letter to Pope Benedict XII explaining that the tower was necessary to protect the fortification. The Pope ordered the Bishop of St. Andrews to release him from his excommunication, provided of course that he pay proper compensation to the church for using the ground.
Anyway, I recommend that you go over to History Victorum on this channel, the BITCHUTE family vlogs. He has been to the castle, but the other one is very good if you want a history lesson into the history that they're telling you, but gives you some history and a look into it. All I see is there's lots of different time periods there, and I think there was something else underneath, and that thing underneath reminds me of, maybe it's a bit like, this was a Paul Cook video, this one. It has a tunnel in. There are in some of the buildings still roofs like that, but I was just, you know, for me, just looks like there's another building and they've built this on top of something else. And what's there, the shape of it, it's all quite amazing, isn't it? This, I just think that had windows in it. This, it's all quite amazing, isn't it? That's from before, I reckon. So, as said, thank you very much to both the channels, and very interesting place, don't you think?